Josh, can I give you one thing I actually like about NIL? We spend so much time being the boogeyman and the chicken littles about NIL. Let me give you one thing I like, and then I'm going to make you go negative in a positive way. I love that NIL, and this is probably a little more in basketball than it is in football, but guys that don't have first or second round obvious professional potential as a draftee can get paid more than they would make on the next level that first year to come back and play in a team where they're already established and they can take whatever fake classes or whatever it is. It helps the team out because obviously if you're overpaying for a guy, he feels a need, but also helps that guy out because he's not going to make it on the next level, and it might give him an opportunity to have a better year and play his way into a better draft status. Back in the day, you had a lot of guys that were so, they're not poor, but they're hard up for money a little bit in terms of at some point I got to start taking care of my family and all these other things. So they would take a 5th round grade and go because they needed some kind of extra money in the tank. And I think NIL sort of bridges that gap a little bit, and it actually fills a need.
I think that's true. And I think that's something we've kind of seen a little bit in basketball. Now, we often say football's not basketball, but in this case, the comparison I'm making is the number of kids that have stayed on college basketball teams because they know they're not going to get drafted in the NBA or drafted very high. Part of the problem with the NBA, they don't have a very deep draft, and the number of guaranteed contracts is pretty much limited to the first round. So for a lot of kids that are really pretty good and could go G League, or they end up going G League, right? You get guys that are juniors or sophomores, they're quality guys, and they've been leaving college in recent years to go to the G League and just sort of train up. And a trend in college basketball is those guys have been far more likely to stay because the revenue, the amount of money you make in the G League and whatnot isn't so high. And I think that's something that probably is going to start to happen in football. And when I say football isn't basketball, one example of that, and it's something I think people really struggle with, college football probably has one of the longest lead times into changes in the sport or in teams resulting in changes on-field play. You can't just take a team full of transfers, and I think Colorado kind of showed this last year, and create a cohesive team that can really run the table. You can take a team that has a lot of senior-laden veteran players and take like 5 key transfers, and you end up with what exactly Michigan was last year. They had, 2 or 3 transfers in the offensive line, a couple other key transfers. But by and large, that was a veteran team. Again, second or third, I think, one of the most number, and I'm drawing a blank right now, one of the teams with the most number of guys drafted in a single class ever, and for a champion, it was first or second ever, I believe, in that, right there with LSU and Georgia in recent years. And that makes the on-field product better. And a lot of where we come from in terms of playoff structure and other things really boils down to whether or not the on-field product's going to be good. People need to be realistic. You care about your team. You care about your team winning. That's the thing you want to put your heart and soul in, and it's what you put your money behind. And that is a part of college football, that loyalty and tradition, and that's something that I think we're kind of messing with, and we'll talk about that maybe when we get more negatives. But the other thing that's important to always remember about football, and college football, NFL, whatever, it's entertainment, right? When people talk about the market of football, something that drives me nuts is they talk about the market between team to team. And while that's true with a little bit of how pay-for-play works, you have to remember the real market for college football is the TV ratings and entertainment value of college football as compared to the NFL, as compared to the NBA, as compared to friend reruns at 6 o'clock on a Thursday night. That's where the value of the sport ends up coming down to, one way or the other. So, ultimately, I think you have to balance all these things out. And if NIL causes kids to come back and it causes the sport to be more competitive, not only is that a net good for me as a viewer, but for the health of college football, it's something that I think is really important to make it be sustainable, frankly.
I think less roster turnover implicitly makes the sport healthier. And you see how it's hurt. The one and done thing hurts college basketball, and how that's turning around a little bit. Like some of your better teams in the last few years have been teams that are really senior laden thanks to COVID.